Smart as a deer and fast as a cantaloupe, our brave hero was searching for the lost city of Marcita Aurora. Going up the Mayan River to the mysterious Rodin's Pass, where the water and stone meet, he was seeking the true face of the Claigeann Fèidh, the skull deer, legendary protector of this promised land.
Hello dear viewers, and welcome back to Stone Painting Minis for our weekly episode of this grand project, the building of our massive medieval fantasy terrain. As you remember, the biggest part of the scenery is built and we have just a small piece missing on the base at this stage. And while it's stunning in comparison of the houses and ground, its design and building process are different enough to justify its whole video, in my opinion. We are building the statue of the Claigeann Fèidh, the tutelary god of Marcita Aurora, so I hope you have bits and XPS foam left in the closet. This week, the project will really be a two-parts job. The first part will be mostly upgrading our construction skill as we work on more complex shapes. This will be the construction of our statue base, also an octagonal fountain. Second part is going to be more art than architecture, as we are designing the skull deer statue itself. So, this sculpture is a massive 5-meter tall piece of stone. The skull deer is a skeleton with a deer head, a long death cape, and crossing brushes in his hands. His antlers are peeking through the hood. Of course, there is no such miniature as the Claigeann Fèidh, so we must create it from scratch. But let's go back to the support first. When we designed the cobblestones, we let a 8.5 cm circle shape blank, and this will be our base to design the fountain. 8.5 cm cylinder. I cut a square shape of 8.5 edge with 1 cm height. Using the circle tool of the hot wire, I'm cutting the round shape at a 4.25 radius. Now that's a cute shape, but we cannot really call it a basin so far. We need to scoop it. Taking the hot wire and adjusting the cut to 3.25, I'm cutting through the cylinder to create, well, a donut. We still need the bottom of the basin, and as we already have the good shape to do it, I'm just hot wiring a slice of the leftover 5mm thick. I'm now sticking the pieces together with hot glue. We now have a fountain base and will begin texturing it. Nothing new here. We are doing exactly as we did on the canal wall. First, drawing the horizontal lines outside and inside, and yes, it's only 1 cm tall, so we will only make 2 levels of 5mm each. And then, well, we naturally alternate the vertical lines on both sides. Finally, well, you are accustomed to it now, our good friend the foil ball to add some damage to those walls. To cover this first piece, we will design tiles to create the octagonal shape, beginning from a 4 by 3.6 by 1.3 piece of XPS foam, we will cut angles to have an isosceles trapezoid. Then we can adjust the hot wire to 5 mm and get 8 nice tiles. And those ones are obviously ending up in the foam grinder first. Now, based on the angle, you should be able to glue the 8 tiles on the top of the donut to create the octagonal edges. Okay, so now that we have the basin, let's make the central column, the one where the statue will be standing on, and this one will have an octagonal shape as well. It seems easy to just cut a shape, right? Well, I forgot how far away I was from my high school geometry class. I will skip the calculation for the video, but basically starting from a 4 by 4 by 3.5 cm XPS foam piece. I'm just hot wiring the angles to get my column. The texturing will be just as simple as before. We are just doing the ashlar stones again, 3.5 cm meaning 3 lines of stones and a half. Once again drawing the vertical lines now, but let's just try this time to have a well disposed grid of stones. We will also choose 2 opposite zones, or 4 if you prefer of course, to place the water inlets. I'm preparing 2 holes between stones to place it a bit later. Now once again, let's just damage the stone with the tinfoil ball. I didn't want this fountain to be too simple, and as I cannot really imagine sculpting things out of nowhere with my poor artistic skills, I'm just adding some cool features to the main pillar. The water inlets will be done with some oak skulls with the open mouth with a piece of pipe between the jaws. I didn't cut this part too long as in a later stage water will run from it and I want it to fall accurately into the basin. And to complete the base, we are designing a pedestal where we will later place our statue. It will be the same octagonal shape, but 5 cm wide instead of 4 and only 5 mm thick. On one side of the shape we will draw the 4 cm octagon and will cut the angle between the two to create a cornice. As it's a bit too small to be done with the hot wire, you can use a sharp knife to do it. Regarding the other side, we are designing 8 tiles on the top. Those are pentagons using the edge of each octagon angle for its top. Okay, it seems a lot to calculate here, but what I did was just designing all my lines and shapes on a single piece of paper and reporting the lines by placing the paper at the top of the foam piece. Now we can do business as usual, make sure the lines are deep enough and damage the pedestal a bit more. Let's finally glue all our pieces together to finish the first part of the job. As you might already know, there are no such divinity as the deer skull outside this channel, so obviously no miniatures has ever been designed for it. The whole design, structure and elements will need to be kitbashed. We need a base to create it, of course, and this skeleton necklace from the dollar store will be a great first element. Of course, the head is just meaningless for this project, so let's snip it off. I'm keeping the legs only because I want to keep the height of the miniature, but I'm taking off the arms. They are just too ugly to stay. Now, I want this silhouette to stand by itself, and those articulated legs does not help at all. So let's glue a copper wire all along the model and temporarily stick it to a cork. We can now begin to add some bits to our model. Regarding the head, I will use this beastman skull and snip the horns off. Then, with a Dremel, I'm digging cavities to later glue the homemade antlers. I also drill a hole at the base to glue the skull to the body. For a god of painting, having no arms might be an issue, but those gross pieces of metal weren't just close to satisfying for this project. But I find those beautiful flesh-eater quartz arms in the bits box that will just have the perfect size and shape. I'm only keeping the forearms as the current angle isn't really fitting. Then I'm creating the structure for the arms. This part will not be visible in the end, so it can be as ugly as we want. I'm just twisting a wire around the chest, cut the tips to fit the arm's length, and finally glue the forearms at the end. I guess that every single one of you have begun this hobby to create tiny, cute clothes, like in a dollhouse, right? Just admit it, it will be easier for everybody. Our statue wears a hooded gown, and if like me you are not really comfortable with green stuff, creating an actual hooded gown made of fabric could be easier. And the best advice I can give you regarding the choice of fabric is to use unwoven one, especially for a robe that is supposed to be carved into a piece of stone like a statue. You can find it on fabric store, but you are actually wearing some on your face every day for the last year. We are positioning our model on a T shape over a folded piece of fabric and will draw the general shape. It will be a flared T, and I would advise you draw it a bit longer and larger than the miniature, except if you want him to wear clothes really tight, of course. Oh, what a cute little robe, right? Well, let's just use super glue to seal the sides before moving to the next step. And with a little piece of cord, let's create a nice rope belt to close the ropes. We are securing it with some PVA. At this stage we can already stick the miniature to the base, as the next step will involve it. We can now dress our dear skull god with this beautiful gown. Done! Yes, I know what you think, it looks absolutely ridiculous, right? Like a cheap toy with a China-made dress. But don't worry about it, we will fix that with some PVA. Let's soak those ropes with glue until it's soaked wet. You see that the fabric is heavier now and begin to fold differently on the miniature, right? While this glue is slowly drying, we can push the fabric, choose the shape of folds and wrinkles, and secure the arms pose by bending the wire. Now let's proceed the same for the hood. This time it's only a half moon of fabric that we put already PVA soaked directly on the skull. Don't forget to cut holes for the antlers during this process and let it dry. Next step will be the antlers themselves. I cut 3 pieces of wire for each that I'm twisting together. Then I'm slowly untwisting the first wire and choose its shape. Then a second one, and when it's peeled, I'm cutting a small bit to keep the same size. And then doing the same for the third one, keeping a small core of the 3 wires to act as a base. I'm then pouring some super glue on the junction to secure it. Now that we got the 2 antlers, we can glue them on the holes we made in the skull. Okay, so far it kinda look like what we want, but we are still not good. These ropes don't look like stone, neither do the antlers. So, remember how we create texture on something flat back in the second video? Now, we aren't going to draw cobblestones onto the statue. But our good old plaster might have some use again. I'm mixing a fluid smoothing plaster without any sand, and then I'm covering both the ropes and the antlers with it, applying a very thin layer all over it, but trying to avoid the ends, skull and chest. While the plaster is drying, I will try to give more texture to the antlers by using an old toothbrush and gently brush the surface to create some lines. Well, if it's not working because it's too hard already, you can use, of course, your blade. Talking about brush, isn't there a small detail missing on this statue? Yes, indeed, the god of painting is missing his brushes. A brush is a stick and a head, right? The stick will be quite easy to figure out with the toothpicks region we have. Just snip a correct length and the brush handle is done. For the hair, we have dozens of options. Use a torch flame from the bits box, use hot glue to create the shape, cut your own hair and make a mini brush. Oh wait, I cannot do that one actually. I'm just gonna use a small chunk of air dry Fimo, make the shape and draw some lines with a sharp blade. It's time to give Claigeann Fèidh his weapons. May he bless us all for the next steps of the series. That's actually it for today. This piece will join the rest of the set. Of course, it's not finished yet, but the last steps to complete it cannot be done so far before it's painted. And talking about paint, we will finally reach this major stage of the project in the next video. So far we are nearly done with the building, and the only parts missing must be done following the paint job. So I hope you have a huge amount of non-citadel paint or an infinite bank account, because it will rain acrylic like never before. Thank you all who have decided to follow this series already by subscribing to the channel. If it's still not the case, let me remind you that this notification bell is not the haunted artifact that will chase you while you are asleep. Or maybe. I will carry on posting updates regarding next episode. Until then, take care, good painting to all, and see you all again soon.
Knowing the true face of Claigeann Fèidh, and letting only ashes of stones from the rodents pass, our unstoppable hero was now searching for the true colors of the world to approach his destination. Long will be the path to watch the deer skull in his eyes inside the holy walls of Marcita Aurora.